After the school year began this fall on October 18th, a large group of elementary school students in Jiangxi Province were seen performing a scene from the land reform period, dressed in red army uniforms. The performance depicted the struggle against landlords during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The students in the audience clapped and cheered as they watched. The video of this performance was later deleted from the domestic Chinese social media. However, it was shared on overseas platforms, with one user commenting, "The future of China might involve revisiting struggles like fighting landlords, the anti-rightist campaign, the Great Famine, and the Cultural Revolution. It seems like Xi Jinping may want to go through it all again. The foundation for mass mobilization is being cultivated." Chinese entrepreneur living in the US, Wang Anna, commented, "This is a terrifying reality. We have fully entered Mao-style education. The Chinese Communist Party's indoctrination of children is distorting their cognition and souls. It will take time to undo the damage and restore normality. Watching an entire generation being twisted is heartbreaking." Former Chinese entrepreneur now in exile in the US, Hu Li-ren, shared 3 photos on X showing Chinese children being organized to watch a speech by Xi Jinping. He said, "Tonight, I showed these 3 photos to a foreigner, explained that these are political lessons for preschool children by the Chinese Communist Party." The foreigner was stunned and said the whole world should condemn the CCP for its abuse of Chinese children. Looking at these photos, one can be sure that the CCP is an extremely evil regime. Former Chinese Party school professor Tai Xia, now living in the US, posted a video on X showing Chinese children being trained to wield daggers. She questioned, "Is this how ISIS recruit children? Which parent would want their child trained to grow up holding a dagger? This is more evidence that China is a terrorist state." On September 18th this year, a 5th-grade student from the Japanese school in Shenzhen was stabbed by a 44-year-old Chinese man just 200 meters from the school and died the next day. In late June, a similar attack occurred in Suzhou, Jiangsu, where a Japanese mother and a Chinese school bus guide were tragically killed. Both within China and abroad, critics have denounced the CCP's anti-Japan education. The government, however, denies any such efforts. Nevertheless, videos showing elementary school students being trained to harbor hatred against Japan have circulated online. In addition to these troubling practices, Chinese children are often taught to show unwavering loyalty to their leaders. At a public class in a school in Jiangxi, the teacher introduced the party's officials attending the lesson, including the District Education Bureau Director Fang Haiyan and the party school secretary of Jiangxi University of Science and Technology, Pei Hongwei. The students then turned in unison to clap and welcome the leaders. The applause was notably synchronized, and each student's turn was meticulously practiced to ensure uniformity in both angle and direction of the applause. Online, many commentators expressed shocked. "This is so exaggerated, like something from North Korea." Another person remarked, "They've been trained to welcome the leaders like North Koreans greet their dear leader." One commentator added, "It's just so sad to watch." The dictatorship of the Kim family in North Korea has created an extreme closed system that elevates its leaders to a godlike status, training citizens to be loyalty machines, worshipping the leader. The Chinese Communist Party is often compared to Western North Korea, drawing parallels between the two systems. A user recalled a childhood activity called listening lectures, where students would rehearse numerous times for every class. They would practice the posture of raising their hands, how to answer, and the tone of voice. He said, "It wasn't just today that we saw the North Koreanization. It's been going on for years, but for a brief period it was slightly more normal. People thought they were living a normal society, but this has always been the case." Another user commented, "Praising officials is a skill that needs to be cultivated from a young age." Some shared 2 contrasting images mocking the behavior of officials before and after they are promoted. One user remarked that the mindset of putting officials on a pedestal needs to be ingrained from childhood. In fact, such orchestrated applause of officials has become commonplace under CCP rule, but this time it was particularly exaggerated. In recent years, whether Xi Jinping visits regions across China, local officials have organized crowds of actors to welcome a bid farewell to him, creating scenes that many liken to North Korean-style displays. On November 10, 2023, 3 months after the flood disaster in Zhouzhou, Xi Jinping visited the area and local residents were made to perform applause for his arrival. In October, when Xi Jinping visited the rocket force, soldiers surrounded him and clapped energetically. Some online users pointed out that if they got any closer, it would resemble the scenes with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. These stage applause performances are also achieved through training. The CCP, an atheist regime, is widely known for its extreme control over ideology, targeting both adults and children. The primary tool of control is propaganda, followed by intensive indoctrination, with the CCP stressing the importance of starting from childhood. In an Inner Mongolian school, students were forced to perform dances and swear allegiance to defend the dictatorship of the Chinese Communist Party. Overseas commentators have expressed concern, saying, watching these unfortunate students, it feels like the CCP's dictatorship is retreating further. China's future in terms of economic and technological developments looks bleak. As early as the autumn of 2021, schools across China began using Xi Jinping thought student textbooks for elementary and middle school students. In 2021, during the Poverty Alleviation Summary and Commendation Conference, Xi Jinping publicly praised the Communist Party's historical actions of fighting landlords and redistributing land. This drew significant attention and was seen as a rare move since reform and opening up era. Following this, the concept of fighting landlords and redistributing land began to be practiced among elementary school students. One commentator, Li Ming, stated that deception and lies were not inventions of the Communist Party. However, the CCP has mastered using these long-standing deceitful tactics openly. The CCP promised land to farmers, factories to workers, freedom and democracy to intellectuals, and peace to the nation, none of which have been fulfilled. He said one generation of deceived Chinese people has passed, and another generation continues to be captivated by the party's lies. He believes this is the greatest tragedy for the Chinese people and the nation's misfortune. Political commentator Cai Shen-kun told Radio Free Asia that Xi Jinping has long wanted to take the step, but in the past there were differing voices and he didn't fully take control of the propaganda machine. Now, by embedding the so-called thought into textbooks, Xi signals his complete control over Chinese society, not just now but for the future. US-based scholar Hu Ping noted that during Mao Zedong's era, the Chinese Communist Party similarly engaged in personality cults. However, after Mao's death, the Chinese people rejected the extreme leader worshipping during that era, while the party's autocratic system remained unchanged, forcing the imposition of a leader's thought and cult of personality from childhood was not practiced in the decades following Mao's death. In recent years, in addition to the traditional methods of brainwashing, the Chinese government has introduced new tactics. These include brainwashing students under the guise of patriotism, science, family values, legal education, and health education, all while encouraging students to spread the party's message throughout society for a nationwide effect. The education system has become a key base for the party's brainwashing efforts. Every political movement within the party generates ripples within the education system. Following the slogan "Starts with the children," China's educational policy is known as the party's education policy, and teachers are loyal to the party's education call. The first rule of the student code of conduct is love for the party, with the goal of training successors for the party. According to sources within China's education system, the brainwashing activities within schools include: number 1, flag-raising ceremony. Every Monday morning, all schools across the country must hold a flag-raising ceremony. Each ceremony features a speech under the national flag, with content directly related to Communist Party propaganda. Schools are required to keep detailed records. Number 2, first lesson of the school year. Hosted by China's state television CCTV is a mandatory broadcast for children and parents to watch at the start of every school year. Number 3, parent-child activities. These events, organized by the country-level institutions, require parents and children to pay around 300 yuan each. Both parents and children wear matching camouflage outfits, and the events are designed to simulate military environments with smoke bombs, special effects, and dramatic shouting. These activities mimic war scenes associated with the Communist Party's history. Each class is treated like a military unit, leaving both parents and children captivated. Even kindergarten participants in these brainwashing events, and many parents eagerly embrace them. Number 4, film tours. Every semester, a film from a film tour is shown at school. Students must write reviews or reflections on the film. For instance, last year, schools in Hubei showed the movie Amazing China, a piece of party propaganda, to all students of appropriate age. Number 5, study tours. These are typically organized by local agencies. Students are required to pay a certain fee to stay in military-style camps for a few days. The highlight of these trips is visiting revolutionary sites such as martyr cemeteries and communist bases where students are indoctrinated with a fabricated version of Chinese Revolution history. Number 6, big hand holding small hand. This initiative brings in a few so-called scientists or academic figures to interact with students. Under the guise of promoting science, these events are also used to spread Communist Party ideology. Number 7, essay, drawing, and speech competitions. These activities are tied to the party's political needs with themes such as My China Dream or the Olympics in My Heart. Each semester, students are handed with CCP-aligned books, which they must pay for. Number 8, WeChat learning. Nationwide, students and their families are required to participate in the Strong Nation study program, tracking study hours and scores. In some regions, schools force parents to download the app and participate, incorporating these scores into local assessments. Number 9, online propaganda. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the CCP took advantage of online learning to frequently promote pandemic education while using experts and celebrities to further its propaganda. Former English teacher Lucy Ren from Xuchang, Henan, who fled to the US, described China's school system as a factory for making little communist youth, saying it brainwashes children in all aspects. In an interview earlier this year, Ren explained how Chinese schools exploit children's desire for progress, coercing them to join the Young Pioneers and Communist Youth League, while isolating those who refuse. Schools also use children's love of movies to indoctrinate them with hate. My child was forced to watch many propaganda movies like My People, My Country, and The Battle at Lake Changjing. Ren said the Communist Party uses popular movie stars to influence children's views. Ren shared an example where a student, after watching the battle at Lake Changjing, angrily told her teacher, "I want to kill them all." The child was upset by a scene where US soldiers enjoyed plentiful food while Chinese soldiers struggled with basic rations. The child expressed a desire to storm the US soldiers and take their food. Other students agreed. Ren found the experience deeply troubling. Elementary school teacher Fang Zhijing from Anhui, who also fled to the US, shared similar concerns. She joined the system in 2020 when schools began distributing Xi Jinping's quotes to students and teachers. Though no one paid much attention to them, teachers pretended to follow the party's curriculum during inspections. She explained how the Chinese Communist Party suppresses religion but mimics religious practices, such as forcing students to recite a pre-meal prayer, thanking the party and the government before eating. Princeton University's retired professor Perry Link wrote for Voice of America, stating that the Chinese Communist Party's brainwashing efforts are the largest in history and are more intrusive than those of the Soviet Union, even resembling cult practices. Despite decades of such efforts, these programs have not entirely erased people's normal understanding and values, because basic human values are not easily changed. Canadian lawyer Lai Jianping commented that these brutal and crude methods of control may temporarily stabilize thoughts, but they won't have lasting effects. We are in the internet era, and the more the party brainwashes people, the more resistance it will create. And in the near future, this will lead to widespread opposition. The party's brainwashing from childhood extends beyond China's borders. The Confucius institutions have long been a well-known tool for exporting Communist Party's ideology worldwide. Recently, the CCP has also launched a 5-year plan for American kids. In November 2023, during his visit to the US, Xi Jinping announced a plan to invite 50,000 American youth to China for exchange programs over the next 5 years. An article published by Yi Bao English on February 16, 2024, by Jeanette Tong and Evan Osborne mentioned that within just a month of implementing this plan, at least 5 US student groups had already completed trips to China, including graduate students from Columbia University, table tennis athletes from Virginia, undergraduates from California State University, Long Beach, high school students from Muscatine, Iowa, and even elementary students from Utah. Xinhua News reported that the first group of students from Muscatine High School in Iowa visited China from January 24th to 30th, 2024, touring Beijing, Hebei, and Shanghai. On March 16, 2024, a group of 24 middle school students from Washington State, organized by the China-US Youth Exchange Association, departed for China, where they spent 11 days on a cultural exchange tour. Chairman of the China Democracy Party and political scholar in the US, Wang Juntao, stated that this initiative is part of Xi Jinping's broader efforts to ease tensions with the US while aiming to use the 50,000 students in the future for political purposes in America. Historian Yi Yuanhua from Australia noted that such exchanges are funded by the Chinese government and have ulterior motives. He pointed out that many children from China's poverty-stricken regions have never left their villages, yet the government spends large sums sending American children to China, an abnormality in itself. Indeed, the trips these American students take follow similar itineraries, visiting Chinese cultural landmarks, high-tech companies like Tesla, and large-scale infrastructure projects. However, they are not allowed to visit areas that would expose the Chinese Communist Party's most sensitive issues, such as its human rights abuse, the violations of World Trade Organization rules, or the widespread poverty that still affects much of China. Li Yuanhua concluded that the selective nature of these visits make them part of a broader brainwashing effort. The goal is clear: to indoctrinate American youth, starting from childhood, into supporters of the CCP's oppressive regime.